All right, well, good morning. My name's David Holmes from homely.com.au. It's great to have your company. We've got a star-studded cast here this morning. We thought we'd bookend our Surviving COVID-19 series with an entire panel of people who have been very, very popular all the way through, have shared some amazing insights and strategies, and just been very honest and real with the journey through COVID-19. And now as we emerge from that with the restrictions easing, we thought we'd get some of their viewpoints and their reflections on the last couple of months and what they're going to see just through the next couple of months or what their forecasts might be. I've got Ewan Morton, Tracey, Dixon, Damien Cooley, Daniel Lee, and also Loic, Mamet with me here this morning. Now, below you'll find the subscribe button for YouTube. You can hit that and you can grab our vlogs as they come to light, as they drop. And also you can follow along on Spotify and also iTunes for the podcast. Simply follow homely.com.au. All right, guys. Well, it's good to have you. Thank you so much for all giving us a little bit of your time. I know Friday mornings are a very hectic time, so thank you very much for investing and also for your investment in the previous vlog. Good to have you here.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Great to be here.
Great to be
All
here.
right.
David.
Guys, we might start, I think we might, tonight we might start with Loic. Loic, you're from Bell Property in Albert Park in Melbourne. When we caught up with you, we had a great chat about some of the things that you were going through. I think you were very focused on growth at that point. It was an interesting observation when we talked to you. At that time, we were just heading into COVID and some really, really heavy restrictions. And some of the things that you're experiencing were, I think most of your property managers working from home, and actually you were experiencing an increased level of productivity throughout all of that. And you actually saw a lot of growth that was starting to happen. Mate, what did you see? Just give us a bit of a snapshot about what you saw through the last couple of months and how that's changed your business moving forward.
Yeah, well, thanks, David. Yeah, Bell Property, based in South Melbourne there. We're mostly a property management business there. So what we was trying to sort of forecast was that a lot of people would be struggling with their businesses, their property management businesses, and there would be an opportunity for us to gain some market share. So not necessarily grow in terms of the size of our business, but grow in terms of the perception in the marketplace. And that definitely happened. We have not lost one property manager throughout the journey. We've actually employed a couple of new staff. We're really ramping up and preparing ourselves for a strong couple of months and good start to the new financial year. We haven't grown in terms of number of managements. We've stayed pretty stable, but the business sort of income has done really well. So I actually think COVID-19 has been a really good experience for our business. We've reinvented ourselves. We've changed the way we do things. We looked at every single processes and systems and changed them for the better. Everything is a lot more efficient. We're not wasting time on the road. We've adopted new technology across the board, really, from leasing to property management. Everything has just been improved. And yes, it's a tough market. And yes, we're having to work longer hours and a bit harder, but we're the lucky ones that still have the jobs and doing well through the process. So we just got to be grateful for it.
Absolutely. Mate, you mentioned the word reinventing. What's one of the key parts that you've had to reinvent, or one of the main things that has really changed for your team?
Well, we're property management, so I call the business, it's a key business. We need to get the keys from the properties from one office and then go to the properties, inspect them, or show people through if it's leasing. Obviously, a lot of that was not possible for a period of time. We couldn't just force ourselves into rental properties and ask our existing tenants to show us around and make sure the property is looked after. So we had to pretty much reinvent ourselves in terms of how we would provide a report to our clients. So we used a lot of remote inspection systems that became available throughout the COVID-19 system, where we asked the tenants to do some of the videos or the photos for us, run us through the property, and we would import that into a very, very professional report, which we were able to then forward on to our clients. And the clients were not expecting that from us. So it was a really good wow factor. And in terms of leasing, on the flip side, where we had to find new tenants, where we adopted a lot of new systems with panorama tours of properties, very much like a sales approach to our leasing, where people would be able to engage with the listing for several minutes and really make up their mind if they like the property or not before they commit to an inspection in person.
Terrific. When you first mentioned that the tenants were going to be doing your videos for open for inspections, mate, I thought that was fraught with danger, to be honest. But obviously that worked out all right. Did you have any interesting ones?
Yeah, we've had a couple of tenants looking at themselves in the mirror and just taking funny photos of themselves. So if we didn't check the report before sending it to the clients, it could have been a problem. But
probably real estate agents, a little bit of selfie time, the sounds of that.
Yeah, but no, it went pretty well. I'll be honest, some tenants were not very keen on actually doing the work for us. This is how they saw it. But most tenants, if they want to report some maintenance issues, if they want to showcase how they're looking after the property, they want to make sure that at the end of the tenancy, there's no issues in getting their bond refunded, etc. It's in their best interest. And for the landlords, they only knew that this was the only option we had. So they appreciated that we did the best we could.
Good. Mate, just a last point with you there. You were sort of talking through just navigating some of the hardship and understanding, your tenant situations around that. How did that pan out? Did you have a lot of unhappy tenants or investors who were out of pocket, or did you manage to sort of reasonably get through that unscathed?
Well, we're still working through it. There was a little bit of a gap between government announcing a moratorium on evictions, for example, and the actual legislation to come into place. And then after the legislation sort of was put in front of us, we then had to wait for the regulations on how to apply those laws. So really, the main challenge was to try and have our investors, landlords, and our tenants to wait until we knew exactly how to deal with it. But once we knew how to deal with it, most of the cases, I'd say 95% of them, have just been dealt with amicably. And there's probably 5% of the cases which have to go through the mediation process via CAV, which is Consumer Affairs Victoria. So we're still working through a lot of those cases, but generally speaking, most tenants and landlords have pretty much saw us as a little bit of their guardian angels in this, where we've been a savior in making sure we were looking after both interests.
Terrific. All right, you Switzerland. Nice work. Dan, let's get to you, mate. How have you seen the last couple of months? I know that when we spoke to you, we sort of touched on a few things, talking about creating massive social media presence and all of that. Mate, what are your observations on the last couple of months, and have you managed to, I suppose, when listings have been lower, managed to keep your presence high and maintain that?
Well, like everyone out there, we had a very slow April. Started in late March. That weekend that the government shut the country down, that was pretty much the day that it went from 100 to 0 overnight, and we had about 6 weeks of very slow movement across the board. So very low transactions. No one wanted to list. We had 15 listings in the office get pulled from going online overnight. And not a lot of sales happening, not a lot of property management, new business coming on. So there was just a lot of time, and I agree with Loic that it just gave us time to, as everyone was working from home, develop systems so that everyone could do their job better from home, because everyone has that chance to do it sometimes, but they might work from home for a couple of hours, but doing it for a whole week, you really need to have the right software, the right systems to do it effectively and keep the business running. Social media wise, we're always big on social media. I guess it gave us a bit of time to just do some extra stuff to get out there. During COVID, we were all stuck at home, so were clients and the public. So getting on social media and getting your presence out there, it was a great opportunity to present yourself in front of people.
And I know
so always doing that.
Yeah, and with some of your videos, it wasn't just property focused; it was more about the team and sort of highlighting some of the characters in your team as well, which is kind of cool. Where do you come up with the content for that, mate? Do you have a bit of a think tank? Do you have a bit of a round table with the team once a week, or how do you come up with those ideas?
Honestly, so the property videos, a lot of the times I do honestly, I just wing it. I get there and I have a bit of a, just a good connection with my videographer. We've both got a pretty funny sense, like, silly sense of humor, and we'll find a couple of things with a property that we think we can highlight. You don't want to go into a property video and make it really salesy. You just want to introduce the opportunity. And if someone's got any...
Oh, we've just lost you there, Dan.
Frozen.
Frozen. All right.
All the further information on the property.
We did just we lost you for a couple of seconds there, Dan.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, but that's all right.
Sorry, am I still there?
We got you now, mate. Gotcha.
Am I still there?
We got you. It's all good,
Okay.
mate. I sense that you're an exceptional real estate agent and perhaps a frustrated thespian, mate, by the sounds of that. Isn't that right?
Something like that.
Right. Mate, nice. All right. Hey, Damien, let's check in with you. How has your last couple of months been? I know when we were talking to you, auction volumes were all the way down. There was a massive shift to your platform, Auction Now, and that was changing. Interested to see how the last couple of months have been with that. Is the momentum staying in that way, and is still the focus on online auctions or a hybrid situation? How does it look in the last couple of months?
I think moving forward, David, the hybrid situation is absolutely here to stay. To be completely frank, it was here before COVID. And really, I think what I learned during that COVID period is that there were a lot of agencies and a lot of groups that were really left and found wanting. They were the agencies that weren't progressive agencies. They were the agencies that weren't thinking about the technology supporting their business. And these were the businesses that really just weren't doing enough before this situation. And they really, in my opinion, it's those agencies that were really left scrambling during the COVID period. But I think if there's one thing that we've really learned is that there is always going to be a hybrid situation with any technology. And certainly the auction technology that had already been in place for a long time, it is here to stay, and it's here to support the live performance, because that's another thing that we really learned during the COVID period. The value that the real estate agent and the auctioneer can have on the sale on auction day in front of a crowd is really unbelievable. The ability to be able to convince someone to bid 25,000 instead of 10,000, or 50,000 instead of 5,000, or 5,000 instead of 1,000. In my view, like that's one of the big value propositions that the agent and the auctioneer bring to the table on the day, whether it's negotiating with the highest bidder or whether it's the auctioneer extracting that during the auction. So the benefit of the Auction Now technology is that buyers are able to have an option of whether they bid online or whether they bid in person now, being able the fact that we can actually get in front of people again. And I think that the online bidder is really the new form of phone bidder, whereas previously buyers would just bid via the telephone. We really want to try and empower a buyer to bid for themselves, but bid online. Those online bidders can bid in conjunction with the bidders in person. There is no doubt that any buyer wanting to turn up to an auction that has a preference to be there in person and bid live, so that they can see who the people that they're competing against, be in control of the way that they bid. But if for some reason they're unable to attend, the online platform is exceptional for those buyers. Probably what we've also learned is that there actually is really a place for a completely digital transaction to take place.
Okay.
An online, genuine online auction, which is like a timed event, which I think will be the future of private treaty sales. Being able to get all the benefits of an auction, being a deadline date, no cooling off period, cash under conditional sale, without the fuss of the live performance. So for those vendors that I guess want to get the benefits of an auction but actually not go to a formal auction process, the Realtair or Auction Now's Buy Now platform, I think, has a lot of legs into the future. Exciting.
Yeah. Okay. So with that, the moving the private treaty to those sort of things, and I suppose you've then got the option or the inclusiveness of the conditional bidders. Do you find yourself though in a more of an eBay sort of situation where you've got that sort of sniper bid at the end where people are just putting in the minimum increment, whereas you as a dynamic, charismatic auctioneer can extract a little bit more. You can read the
Completely,
play and
Dave.
get the extra 5. How does
Like
it look?
well, exactly what you said is what I think we learned during COVID is the value of the auctioneer
Yes.
and the value of the agent being able to negotiate on auction day. But the reality is that the auction process represents a very small component of the total sales in Australia. And we'd be completely naive to think that every vendor wants to go to auction, because the reality is that they don't. There are a lot of vendors that want to put their property on the market. They want a quick sale. They don't want the rigmarole of a live performance. I completely disagree with that. But the reality is that there is only 14 or 15% of properties nationwide that go to an auction campaign. So if there's 85% of properties that aren't, the Buy Now platform is an exceptional product for those people that don't want that performance. But you and I are preaching to the converted as to the benefits of going to auction, and that's the reason why we give our clients the opportunity to get a premium result in the shortest period of time. Most
definitely. Mate, did you get rusty at all? You had a couple of weeks off. Did you find that you got a little bit rusty at all when you got back out
cooking.
There? What was that, Ewan?
He took up cooking.
Well, that was my next question, mate. What was the best dish you actually created? Because it looked extraordinary fare on offer.
You know what? I made a Yabby Fregola the other day.
I know. I was like, bloody hell. Yeah. It's like getting more and more complicated with every dish.
I had to get a screen protector for my screen, mate, just drooling over there. It was fantastic.
What we learned during COVID was that it was a disaster for auctioneers in the auction market. I mean, our business in April was down 77%. Our business in May was down 55%. Incidentally, our business in June is looking a lot more promising. So the wheels are starting to turn.
Yeah,
we're absolutely on the upward trajectory, getting back to where things were. Mind you, 2019 was a pretty disastrous year for the auction market in Sydney. Anyhow,
it's just all round.
Yeah, but like David, you mentioned earlier, like what's the forward projection? I think moving into the spring market, one thing I've always believed is that the real estate industry, being salespeople, property managers, and auctioneers, we're quite recession proof. And what I mean by that is that we're a transactional based business where people need to buy, people need to sell. There are always births, deaths, marriages, divorces, and regardless of market conditions, there will always be the need for the real estate agent, whether it's managing a property or whether it's listing and selling. So I'm actually quite excited about the spring selling period. I don't think the market's as bad as what a lot of people are saying, and I'm looking forward to a good spring market.
All right, we'll touch on that in a minute or two. Tracey, we had a good chat, and it wasn't that long ago, it's only about a month ago, but we're talking about how some of the things in your business had changed back to almost more of a traditional model of real estate, meeting people more one-on-one, putting people in cars and showing them. And you were, I think, enjoying the quality of the buyer that you were working with. They were a lot more qualified. They were ready to purchase. And I think you sort of bypassed a lot of the tire kickers, didn't you? You're basically saying, but you're also...
That's quite refreshing, yes.
Yeah, but you said buyers were the new black. I love that. Buyers are the new black. And you're really servicing your buyers, which was great.
Yeah, 100%. Look, I think it was really, regardless of, the terrible situation of the pandemic, it was really a time to regroup, sit back, look at the business and go, okay, where are we falling down? And I think a lot of the places what we're falling down is the actual true connection with the buyers and sellers. So, it gave me the opportunity to really touch base with a lot of people that I hadn't touched base with, and really kind of just have a regular conversation as people, and everyone was going through the same thing. So it was quite interesting to see, who'd been affected, who hadn't, who was business as usual. We were very fortunate to be able to keep running the business quite effectively. In terms of year on year, this year has been so much more favourable than last. And I know that sounds crazy.
The transaction numbers didn't drop off heavily?
No, not at all. In fact, I found that off the back of a very strong first quarter or the first few months of the year, I had a lot of buyers that were really wanting to still buy a home. So we focused on those people. We focused on the people that really wanted to sell, but obviously didn't want to go on the market. Things changed abruptly, like Damien was saying. You know, the online portal was just so extraordinary, and I absolutely loved using it. And it's something that we'll keep using because, you know, it enabled me to pull buyers from around the world that normally probably wouldn't have had the time to, I guess, step back, look at the auctions, have a look at Sydney property. I think there's going to be a lot more of that into spring. Already I had an auction coming up this weekend where I had a Hong Kong-based buyer, a Singapore-based buyer. They're all sort of Australian residents, but they're, for whatever reason, locked down in those countries. So it's just been so exciting. I feel that the whole situation has brought the world closer rather than, you know, made it further away. It's interesting, I guess, just like this, like what we're doing now. And I think that we can take the online auction a step further and really, you know, what Damien was saying about the power of the auctioneer, 100% I agree with that. But, you know, my team were all on the phone to each buyer. We felt like we were all in the room, even though, you know, we weren't. But I think it gave people a lot of the feedback I had from buyers that were using that system was that they were able to chat together in the lounge room without feeling under pressure from, you know, the intense sort of situation at the auction. And they were really liking that little bit of, I mean, the auctions are, Damien, you probably would agree, the auctions are taking longer because, you know, people have got time to think. I found that it was really a very positive situation. So I think blending that with our current sort of scenario where people can be on site is going to be a really fantastic thing moving forward. But I definitely got to know the buyers so much better during that period, and I've really, my whole team are taking that whole feeling through to, you know, and we're doing a lot more off market transactions as well.
It'd be hard to assess the results, but it'd be interesting to see what the effect on the results is from that anonymity. So if people are sitting in their lounge rooms unable to see, as auctioneers we're unable to read that play, does it mean that we're not able to put people in that situation where it is that pressure cooker situation and the competitive bidding, you know, on site or in an in-room auction is not as prevalent? Did you see that?
Well, I think a lot of my clients did that to themselves. Like one couple rang me afterwards and said, oh, we had a massive argument while that was going on at home. And sort of in a live auction, you know, you kind of on your best behavior with each other. Yes. But it was a really funny sort of thing. But look, I think, yes, definitely, you know, I prefer to have the buyers there to be able to walk up and talk to them. You know, we're very much, you know, we're people. But still, you know, I think it just adds a different dimension. And I think that some people might not have participated, you know, or registered on the day at the auction, whereas they did online. So I think there's a bit of give and take with that.
It will be a nice thing to be able to offer that, you know, to Damien's point, you know, offer that very much that hybrid situation for people who may not be comfortable to be there on the day, but then there are people who want to be front and center. So probably we have created a more inclusive process all round. And Tracey, what I'm interested in is just over the last couple of months, you're in a very affluent area where you market property. Have people been very, very comfortable just to sort of take the word of the agents and people looking through on their behalf, or has there been any hesitation around there? Are people very comfortable with that process now, the live walkthroughs and such?
Yeah, look, for a period of time there, for a couple of months, we had to take enormous precautions. Some owners were very reluctant to allow people through the home. So we had to do the gloves, the masks, the sanitizer, not touching anything, one-on-one inspections. Once again, look, you know, look, fortunately, I can only speak about my area, but, you know, and I sell a wide range of, you know, dollar value. So from, you know, 500,000 up to 15 million, I guess you could say. But it just means everything is exactly the same. Doesn't matter whether it's that price or that price. People were reluctant to allow people through the home, but we did a lot more video presentation. We did a lot more walkthrough. I showed buyers through properties via Zoom. And I found that I had to really look at the benefits of each property much more closely. It really taught me to not just, you know, turn up on the day, but to have that list of, you know, I had a lot lists from owners about what they liked about the home, you know, what made them purchase the property. I think we just got more intense around the whole sales process in terms of what does this home really mean? What are the benefits for the buyer? So I think it just enabled us to nut down into that a lot more clearly, and it's become the norm now. We need to know more. As an agent, you have to be the expert around that property and who the buyer is. So I've got I think my skills have sharpened up a lot more regarding what, nutting down onto what the buyer really wants, and I'm able to, show them the right property more quickly, I think.
It's kind of getting back to sales 101, wasn't it? I mean,
It is,
I think for a lot of agents, we heard that, they turned into information providers or order takers, which is a common term. But having to get back to it, that actually, finding out what the benefits are to the buyers of certain aspects and features of the property, and being on video, having to actually sell that, it's a return to the basics, which is quite encouraging, I think, for a lot of brands. Ewan.
Hello.
Mate, last couple of months, we spoke about some of the things that you were doing. One of the things that was really cool that you did was a survey with your staff, and you used that as a bit of a barometer around culture in your business. That was an internal sort of reflection. I'm interested to hear how that went and what changes you might have made around that, but also just your lens on the market as well, I suppose.
Well, I suppose as we discussed that thing, the survey was about whether they wanted to take a pay cut or whether they would rather other people got sacked. And what everybody came back with is they would rather other people got sacked than themselves. And what was interesting...
Very honest, isn't it?
Yeah, but I mean, as I said, I was in the same boat. I didn't really want to pay cut myself. In terms of... it was very interesting to get that sort of feedback, and also for us to understand that our culture is built on we all look after each other. It's a family-based firm. All these things that, in fact, things that I didn't really pay much heed to, but the team did. So we haven't cut pays yet, and we've made it through so far without having to do that. We still have, it's interesting, COVID is not over. Like we've still got the impact of it. And the thing that we're experiencing now is all the rent, so on the rent roll side of it, all the rent reductions and everything have all been done. The hardship stuff's all been dealt with. The problem we've got now is a rent reduction due to market conditions. And in some of our markets, that's absolutely dramatic. So somewhere like the CBD where, we had an average rent of $1,000 a week. I reckon that's it's basically cycling its way down to sort of $750 to $8.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Yeah, no, it's harsh. Like 2 bedrooms, $1,150 now at $850. That style of thing.
Wow.
In the CBD, all the Airbnb, it's actually CBD and Inner East.
CBD Piedmont, it's almost a bit of a basket case you're on, yeah?
Well, interestingly, Piedmont has been fine. So fine, it seems that people want to live there. And so that's actually been okay. Whereas in the CBD, you've had a flight from, everyone's gone from expensive to cheaper. And also, someone's renting a 2-bedroom flat and they've realized the one floor down is heaps cheaper. So they've all started to move. So we've had to do things like, the team are trying to re-sign tenants onto leases, but that's actually negotiating a rent down, so we're like this end of month in June will be very interesting for us to see where our management fee's sitting. Saying that, the leasing is back and going hard, and the team is a lot tougher than what they were at the beginning. So very interesting for the young people. I think they've probably found it the toughest, this whole situation. And on the whole, we've managed to keep them all together. But I say a lot of them have had what I call a catatonic moment, where they have frozen and don't know what to do and have become quite distressed, particularly some of the ones in those markets where you've got pushy people being aggressive and rude. That's hard for somebody in their 20s to deal with. So that's been a really fascinating thing. So we've got to see how that goes. But what's interesting is we stood down, say, our growth function and thought, okay, let's just see where this lands. But this week we've decided to bring it back regardless of reductions in rents, because a bit like you, Loic, there's a lot of opportunity there. And also, if our management fees are going to come down, there's only one thing that we can do about it, and that is put on more management. So, you know, it's like every crisis I find is, you know, you sort of sit there and stare at the spreadsheet and everyone thinks of ideas, and the solution is always the same, which is you just got to sell your way out of it. So that's what we're doing. Is like, right, let's get out there and crank it up and get more business. The sales side's doing much better than expected, which is really surprising. I thought, I mean, when we say that, our expectations have come right down as to what we consider a good month now. So, you know, before when we spoke, I talked about Operation Abyss, which was we just wanted to get our whole sales team across the abyss in one place without having to lose people. And we've achieved that. So that's been good. And people are doing well. And right now it seems quite buoyant, like, I don't know if you want to use that word, buoyant, as in people are doing deals, but it's the classic stuff. Like, you know, Damien does all our, like his firm does our auction. So Bree, who's our auctioneer, she's feeling it. We had an auction last Saturday. Now the place was worth 1.85. We had someone at 1.83. So you think that's all good. The people bought that unit from us in 2017 for 2.2. So that's pretty common at the moment. And so our guys, you know, I say to them, unless you can sell a property for less, if you can sell a property for less than what someone paid for it, and have them say thank you, then you can call yourself a real estate agent, in my view. If you can't do that, you're not a real estate agent. So we've got plenty of that going on around. And so I suppose for us, what's good about all of that is because we're sort of in investment areas, is we're the first thing that people want to bail out of. And I do think that there's a lot of worry about September, October. There is worry about recessions. We have, like, I have $150 million worth of stock to sell right now. Right? And it's just like, bloody hell. But it's getting it priced at the right level in order to get it to move. And I think that the people that are in the market are the ones that are actually trying to lessen their risk for that September, October time if we really are going to go into trouble. And there's a real argument, like I've had having this conversation every Saturday now, which is, I know this is disappointing, but I think you need to think about where this is going. And my team feel that there might be carnage coming into early next year from a price point of view, but it actually might be good for us as agents from a volume point of view, because that's really what's been missing from the market the last couple of years has been the volumes. So
that's been, that has been a common theme, obviously,
Yes.
just looking at that increased volume and probably a lot more distressed sales and those sort of things.
Yeah.
To your earlier point, though, Ewan, when you were talking about those rents coming down so significantly, do you think that's indicative of the values coming down at a similar level, or is it just the rental yield dropping off very steeply?
I think that our marketplaces, so this is sort of, you know, CBD in a Sydney type of stuff. And we also got an office in Penrith and an office in Wentworth Point, and they're fared a lot better. So like Penrith, they don't even know what COVID is.
Okay.
You know, seems to have no effect at all. Yeah, in terms of what they're doing, definitely in the inner city. But I felt that even before COVID, our markets, the rental market's been slowly softening, particularly as all these new developments come. It's actually been slowly softening for probably 12 to 18 months. And when we got into the new year with the stock, you know, because 2018 was not very good, and then 2019 turned out to be worse. So we're all very hopeful about 2020 because we're fundamentally optimistic people. But when we got out with the stock, I was sitting there watching, those first auction, the first wave, and it's like, oh, this is not got the buzz to it that it should. And in a way, COVID's done us a favor in that it's been able to deliver the price reduction that was required. That sort of pressure has actually probably smashed it down a lot faster than what, say, happened in the GFC, which was like a death by 1,000 cuts, is how as it sort of slowly came down, which probably was more better from a bigger picture economic point of view, but from an agent's point of view, you just think they get it down, because you then get the difference of opinion, buy, sell. So I think volumes, mate, I think that's actually what we could be heading to, is actually a better volume year. And we're certainly selling, our figures are better in 2020 than they were in 2019. So,
so to our next point, silver linings, and might just keep going with you there, Ewan. What do you see as the silver linings? Obviously, more stock, more volume, but that's going to be an interesting time, as you say, having those very difficult conversations with vendors who are selling at a lower point than perhaps what they purchased at.
Yeah, definitely. But I think that's good. But I do think things are going to change. Like even what Damien and Tracey was saying about, you know, the auctions and what's happening. I think fundamentally how we do business is going to change. You know, the whole flexibility thing, you know, we've had people all working from home, and output has been exactly the same, if not better. And in fact, our sick days as a company went down. And I think that's because, you know, when someone's got a cold or not feeling 100%, but they can actually still do some work, the fact that they can work from home and get into it and sit in their pajamas and Ugg boots makes it better. So I think that flexibility, to the extent that I reckon we could probably halve our footprint in terms of our office space, and we would be fine. So that's
cycling staff in, half out for the week.
Yeah. And I think that that's a much better way to work when you've now, you know, it's not about work-life balance now, it's about work-life blend. So, you know, people, you know, of course they behave, it's, you know, like that whole thing is like, they must be at work so I can see them. Well, they've actually turned out to be able to act responsibly and do their jobs when we couldn't see them.
What do you think the flow-on effect to something like CBD and office space will be if we decide to have people work from home? Is going to shrink the CBD effectively, is it? Or
hopefully, because I'm going to be looking for a new office. So I'm hoping for a bargain.
Surely that depends on the type of role that the employee has, because I think in a lot of cases, from a lot of the businesses that I've spoken to, there's actually really been like people have missed going into the office to get that energy and that experience of being present with the team and feeding off that energy and that buzz to be a great real estate agent. I would argue in many cases, well, maybe that's just for our industry, that home thing has been a disaster.
No, there's no doubt, definitely. But I think that the way the spaces will work will be different. And the way, even, you know, I used to say, even before COVID, you know, sometimes I drop into one of our offices and find there's actually no one in it. Because of technology and mobility and the way things are working now, everybody's out with the customer. So it's sort of changed. You definitely need to have that sort of everyone coming back to energize and learn and be together. Like, you've got to do that. But how office spaces will look in the future, how you make that work, I think it'll be different.
Perhaps it's just like, it's more of a mental habit. Knowing the office is there, it's home base, I can go to it. Yeah. It's a bit like the gyms, you know, the day that gyms open, you know, again, everyone went back for the first 2 days, and then, you know, 3 days into it, people were sort of, you know, okay, that's there, I've got that. I don't need to go again anytime soon, but it's nice knowing that I've got that as, you know, I suppose creatures of habit.
We definitely identified, we said, right, that person needs to come back to the office. So particularly the younger people, we're like, right, they've got to come back and sit next to a senior person because they're going under and they need that experience. So that sort of pays to your point, Damo, is how you balance these things. I don't see everybody working from their home.
Yeah.
And real estate agents aren't very good in isolation, I don't think, as a breed. So you have to get the balance. But I do think that the way the space will be organized and what we'll do will be different. Yeah,
we're real estate salespeople need people around. They need that the iron sharpens iron sort of mentality. You've got to have people to bounce off for sure. Dan, to that point, silver linings, your office culture there. What have you seen there, mate? And how do you see it?
Well, I find there's a lot of value in office culture, and you know, as Ewan said before, you know, work-life blend. You know, I think it's sort of a work-office blend. Sometimes when you know, most agents who are doing a lot of business are working 6 days a week, and they're spending a lot of time at the office. And sometimes you get through a week and just feel like all you've done is, you know, spend time in the office. It's like, it just goes by in a flash. And I think this, you know, setting it up so that we can work from home and finding a new work from home, but also work from the office blend has been really, really encouraging and really successful for a lot of people. And I think, you know, if you get that blend right, I actually think people are working better. I definitely have seen that productivity has not dropped at all. And in fact, you know, just asking people how they find the working from home experience, they're absolutely loving it and they're performing well. So I think if you do get that blend right, it's actually better for the company. But I also at the same time, I cannot take away the value of having a great office culture and having somewhere to come and work. I've always found a massive benefit, even before I had my own company in the old real estate agency where it had a fantastic culture for a while until I left. And you know, it's part of the reason why I did leave is because that culture turned to, you know, something that I thought needed a lot of improvement. And having that culture, I always found a lot of value in that personally. I get a lot of energy. I love coming in and, you know, having that camaraderie, that, you know, that my comrades around and, you know, learning from people. And, you know, I think, yeah, real estate agents as a breed do need that. Salespeople need that. If you know, a lot of people are doing, you're seeing a lot of these small companies, you know, trying to push this work from home, do everything yourself idea, which can work. But mentally, I don't think as a salesperson, that's the best way to operate.
I agree.
Okay.
Completely agree.
Tracey,
And
silver linings. Oh, sorry, Dan, you've got one.
Oh, whilst I've got Damien, I did have a question for him because, sorry, you may have answered this, but I did break up for about 5 minutes and change rooms. But I'm very curious in the online auction atmosphere because I do feel like the trend is moving towards that. A couple of questions around that. Do you find that, you know, I'm big on auctions. I love them for the right properties. We do a lot of them here in Brisbane compared to most offices in our area. The drama around it, the theatre, you know, that real, when you're getting to the nitty gritty part, the top end of the auction where you're trying to extract those, you know, last 10, 20, $50,000, whatever you're trying to get, you know, there's nothing like those buyers being in close proximity to each other, seeing their reactions. You know, you're going up, you know, I have a really good bond with my auctioneer, and I'm sure you have that with your agents where you sort of play off each other. You come have the little chats, and then, you know, the agent.
Don't give all the secrets away, mate. Don't give all the secrets away.
So probably two things there, right? The first thing that I'd like you to walk away from asking that question and going back is that you said, you know, for the right property you auction it. That's the first thing, that is that every single property is auctionable. Because it's not just about auction day. Like it's about the process leading into auction day that actually delivers the result.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that, Damien. Every property, I
would auction everything.
It's really not property specific. It is a process that we use to get the best result for the owner in the most transparent way for the buyer in the shortest period of time. That's the first point.
I totally agree with that.
I think that, like, auction day and the whole online auction process, I believe, will be best used in conjunction with each other.
With that, yeah.
So conducting an auction exclusively online, like we were doing during the COVID period, whether it be using Auction Now or any other program, whether it be having a Zoom environment like we're doing right now or a Google Hangouts environment, whatever it might be, I think that the ability to get in front of someone far outweighs doing it via any tech platform. It's very, very naive to think that it doesn't have a place. It absolutely has a place. What Tracey was saying before about having overseas buyers, what you were saying before about being able to market a property with walkthrough inspections or virtual. I mean, there's a property in the eastern suburbs that's about to sell for tens and tens of millions of dollars. The buyer hasn't inspected it, but they've been through virtual inspections.
Yeah.
So to think that it doesn't have a place, I think would be the wrong attitude. But
the combination.
No,
I think.
Yeah, the combination. I absolutely think it has a place. Sorry to cut you off there, Ewan. I absolutely think it's got a place. Have you found, like, because you've done a lot of online auctions, I haven't done a lot, so I've just watched a few. Have you found that it's a little bit harder to get those final sort of that little bit extra when they're online, or do you find that it's kind of the same?
Because you do tug on the emotions, Damien. You have a look, you have a word, you read the play. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that a lot of auctioneers forgot how to auction when they were doing an online auction. And the tools and the strategies that you use as an auctioneer to extract that 5 or 10 or 25 is important. Now, two parts. If you've got plenty of buyers and you're at a price that you're selling and you're on the market, you're selling, I believe that you can still have that influence. When you're below the reserve and you can't sell and you're trying to extract those bids, it was and is challenging. But what we did to combat that is that's where the agent needs to then get on the phone to that buyer. Like Tracey was saying earlier, Tracey had a few different agents talking to different buyers. They were able to have that influence over the buyers to answer that exact question that you're saying, to get that 5 or that 10, or get them to increase their bid. That was and is a challenge in the online space for the auctioneer when you're not selling. But when you're selling, I believe we still have that same influence.
And have you found that?
I think you can create your own drama with it as well, very much so, because
true.
I think there's a bit of an element of the fact that people aren't there and they're kind of wondering what's happening. And so, if I can pop on and say, "Oh, Ed, we've now got another bid from someone here," it's kind of it does work well if you. And we got more comfortable with the process the more we had used that portal.
Yeah, I like the Auction Now platform in the sense that the buyers couldn't see each other. So they actually didn't know whether there was one buyer only. And we had lots of auctions with one buyer that were able to get them to place a bid, but they didn't know that they were the only buyer. So I would use different language during my auction to say things like, look, to all of our online bidders, it's incredibly important that you bid right now. We're only going to be negotiating with those buyers that bid. And if you don't bid, I can only assume that you don't want to be included in any post-auction negotiation. So I would say things like that.
Right. Okay.
It'd come in.
Yeah. That's really
everyone, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to go because I've got an 11 o'clock that I have to get to, but it's been really lovely catching up with everyone. And
absolutely.
I've had some great pearls today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tracey. Great to have you along. We'll probably get a little bit off track there with the auction side of things, but I do love it. Love a good auction chat. Thanks, Tracey. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Daniel, we credit Damien for teaching us the auction culture. So fly him up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Like we're the masters of the no buyer auction. And Damien taught us how to, like I have the guy agent saying, "Oh, Ewan, there's no buyers. Don't worry about that. We'll sell it." So, and that's a lot to do with what Damien started working with us. It must be almost 10 years ago now, plus. And they were hilarious. We used to have auctions, which was me, the agent, and Damien, and that was it. And we managed to start getting the vendor there, and that
probably wants to get us back on track with the silver linings.
Yeah.
Guys, I can assure you that's 85% of the auctions in Brisbane. That's the auctioneer, the agent, and two people in the crowd. So don't worry about that. We probably got a little bit off track there, but the only other concern around that would probably be just the public's perception or the buyer's perception of some dummy bidding and those sort of things. So that's just something that has come up a couple of times, but it's very transparent, which is why I like the platforms as opposed to just a Zoom or just a Google Hangouts, because it's very transparent with the registrations of bidders, etc. So you get a little bit more transparency around it, which is good. Guys, we are probably rounding towards the hour, which is good, but I really wanted to just get a bit of a forecast about what your thoughts were moving forward from this. We've spoken about how it looked initially, how it has looked now reflecting, and none of us have a crystal ball and none of us are economists, but it is going to be an interesting time. Some of the economists are saying that spring is going to be coming early, which is going to be an interesting sort of thought around our market. Is there going to be an influx of stock in the coming weeks, if that's going to happen early, or are we waiting till spring? And once all the payments stop, so our job keepers, and once people have to pay their mortgages and their car leases and all those sort of things, are we on a bit of a pulse now and it's going to drop back, or just what your thoughts are? We won't hold you to any of this, but just be interesting to get your thoughts. Loic, we might start with you there.
Yeah. Well, going back to rentals there, because that's
your business.
More my expertise. I agree with what Ewan said before. We're pretty much Melbourne CBD as well, so we very much compared to the Sydney CBD. And just to give you an idea, pre-COVID-19, at any point in time, we'd have about between 900 and 1,000 properties on the market in the CBD. Okay, it slowly creeped up, and at present, I think it's over 3,000 properties. So I just think it's just the simple law of supply demand. There's way too much available from all the short stays, Airbnbs, etc., that have sort of been pushed into the long-term rental market, and there's not as many people looking at moving in those properties. So I think, yes, I don't think we'll disappear as an industry. I just think the hard work will be in educating our landlords on the real current value of their rental properties. And if their new normal, if the normal price was $600-700 per week, well, now it's $550 per week, and that's, you're just going to have to adapt to it. It's the way it is, and I see this going like this for at least another 12 to 24 months. To be honest,
how are you delivering that information? Obviously, it's a bit like the imposing of restrictions. They got brought in stage by stage by stage. I mean, had we closed down the whole country initially, it would have been hard. So, with your communications to your vendors around the new perceived value for their property, how are you delivering that information? Is it gradually, or is it just one tough conversation or one tough piece of communication up front? How do you deliver that?
It started very gradually because I didn't want to say anything that wouldn't last. I didn't know how long this would last, and not all the Airbnbs and short stays were sort of pushed into the rental market at the same time. It sort of slowly happened. But what we did is pretty much just go by facts and numbers and look at these properties online. This is how much they're going for. Right. This is how much they're advertised for, but this is how much we actually got as an offer and how much they actually rented for. And very quickly you throw in a few case studies, and if you use case studies, it's the best way to sell a story and get them to understand it. But really, it took a good month to try and get the landlords to understand and be educated on what is the new normal in terms of their rental properties. Yeah, sure. We're still working through it. In terms of forecast, I'm hoping that what I'm forecasting is not right, but I'm seeing more and more that tenants will not see as much value in living inside in the CBD than what they used to before. Yes, the working from home and working remotely is going to play something into it. So they don't have to catch public transport to get into the CBD every single day of the week. So they might think to themselves, we might be able to get a bigger house for a cheaper price a bit further away and work from home. That's one thing, but also all the businesses inside the CBD that have cut their staff by half, all those people that were living in the CBD probably are not living there anymore. And I'm also seeing less businesses operating from the CBD, which means there's less traffic inside the CBD. I don't know how long this is going to take, but I don't see this recover fully for at least another 24 months. That's my forecast. And the business now is all about readjusting landlords' expectations on their rental return. And just that's the way moving forward. We're still going to transact. People still need houses and apartments to live in, but I do not think we'll be at the same rent level in the CBD than what we were pre-COVID-19 for at least 2 or 3 years.
Good insight. David, I'm afraid I have to go, gentlemen. I've got an 11. So thank you.
Ewan, thank you. Appreciate that. Nice to meet you. All right, we'll finish up. Damien, any last comments there about early spring and just finishing up there?
No, I think I really believe that our industry is recession-proof. Sure, there's some challenges that we need to adjust to, like Loic was mentioning, in the rental space, in the sales space. There could be challenges ahead on pricing, on vendors' expectations. We might well be surprised in spring that if we can manage to keep as close a lid on the unemployment rate as we possibly can, and if people are in jobs. But as I said earlier, people always have to buy, sell based on births, deaths, marriages, divorces. So I think the beauty of our industry is that we're dealing with people who are buying, largely residential property to live in, and it's the emotion that's involved in that living, that there are opportunities, and there will always be opportunities. I'm a little bit more optimistic. I think that whilst it will take some time for CBDs to get back to what they were. I actually believe that they will get back to what they were, and they'll get back to being stronger than what they were. I'm a little bit more optimistic about, businesses, restaurants, the economy at large in time. And it will get back, and it will get back to being bigger and better than ever.
Gradually. Dan, some final thoughts there, mate?
Yeah, I'll keep it short. I think it's unrealistic to think that, prices are going to soar in the next year. So, but I am optimistic that I do believe that we are, because everyone needs a home. We are a bit recession proof, and transactions will always happen. Unfortunately, in a downward market, the main losers are people who are selling that may have got more 6 months before, but properties will still sell, transactions will still happen. I'm optimistic that we're all going to have a pretty good year from here.
Absolutely. Guys, I'm certainly grateful that we're all still in business. I think there's a massive appetite for auctions, for open homes, for property at large, and for the market to proceed and for us all to prosper. But guys, thank you so much for giving us some time today. Really appreciate your thoughts and your insights. Nice way to finish off. Certainly the next couple of months, as we say, with the easing of restrictions, are going to be a lot more fun. So we look forward to seeing you out there in the marketplace.
Thanks, David.
Thanks, David.
Thanks, guys. All the best. Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers.